You know, we can tune out this president's rants about chugging bleach, but we can't tune out the fact that we have a lack of protective equipment, that we do not have enough testing, that there is an absence of national leadership.
Okay, Amy Klobuchar lying on the George Stephanopoulos show. George Stephanopoulos, by the way, just stood by and listened to Amy Klobuchar say that the president urged people to chug bleach. Again, if you're a Democrat, George will let you do that. If you're Rudy Giuliani and you got a R next to your name, no way. The interruptions start before Mr. Mayor starts to speak. But we are so glad, and we will afford him every courtesy tonight, that Mayor Giuliani is joining us on Newsmax. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm fine, and you're absolutely right. And George isn't the worst. I mean, a couple of them are even worse than that. You basically have to talk over them. And if you say something they don't like, oh, my goodness, it's terrible.
All right, well,
but
listen.
the fact is the president acted as quickly as you could act, given the fact that this is a new virus. What that means is we knew nothing about it until the beginning of this year. We couldn't possibly have tests ready for a virus we knew nothing about. It would be scientifically and physically impossible. It took 2 months to figure this whole thing out to start with. The problem here is that China knew that this virus was transmittable human to human back in early November, late November or early December. They took a month and a half to tell the world. And they were sending their people around the world, 1.5 million of them, while that was going on. And that's the party to blame here, not President Trump or Governor Cuomo or Mayor anybody. They're all reacting, and they're doing the best they can. China and the WHO are solely responsible for this.
Well, we know about their culpability, Mr. Mayor, but we're still going to point one little finger at Mayor de Blasio, your successor's successor. All right. Now, listen, look,
it's hard to defend him, I know.
Here he is. This is over the weekend, walking in the park. Now, the thing about it that folks don't realize necessarily, I know that maybe they're sick of New York news, but New York is the coronavirus capital. He had to drive to the park from 8 miles away. I think this is going to be the iconic footage of his mayoralty, hanging out in the park during an absolute catastrophe where people are dying, especially in some city-run facilities. The leadership just isn't there, is it?
No, he doesn't get it. He never got it. You know, I did what I did probably because I saw Mayor Koch do it. You know, I went to the hospitals when police officers were injured or firefighters were injured. So if it were me, I would be at some of the hospitals now, or trying to make sure they're getting the care they should get. I wouldn't be spending my time complaining, because I would know that by complaining you get less than by cooperating. And I'd be giving people messages of hope. I mean, every time he talks, it's more depressing. He should talk about getting the city open. He should try to open some things, maybe small things, but just things to show us that we're going to be able to get out of this. Maybe a couple of small stores, or instead of, it almost seems like he wants us to be locked down until the election.
You know,
kind of happy with it.
He's very panicky, unlike you. And by the way, you're basically an emergency management expert in addition to your leadership skills. I want to show you a map of where the states that are thinking about opening fairly soon, a lot of them. Let's go ahead and put it up on the screen here. We've got a lot of states making moves very shortly. By the end of this month or early next month, partial reopenings are scheduled. Are you content? Are you satisfied with our progress? Do you think this should have happened maybe 15 days ago? Is it happening too soon? What's your assessment?
It's definitely not happening too soon. I can't second guess it and say it should have happened 15 days ago. But I think it's about time that we start opening up. In some of these states, the numbers are very, very low. They're not New York. They're not New Jersey. The chances of anything terrible happening there are very small. But we have to take that risk. I mean, we can't remain an unproductive country for much longer. I mean, what would it have been? 5 weeks now, this country has virtually done nothing. And most of the world has done nothing. So we've got to start getting moving again. And of course, there's going to be risk. There's not just risk of coronavirus. There's risk of heart attacks, cancer, accidents. We live with risk every day of our lives.
Mr. Mayor, I'm afraid I'm almost out of time. Before we go, though, I want to point out that you can be heard on the radio 4 to 6 p.m. every day on WABC radio here in New York, but you can listen to it across the world at WABCradio.com. You've got your Giuliani, let's see, how do you pronounce that?
Common Sense Podcast.
Rudy Giulianics.
Right? Common Sense. Just put down Rudy Giuliani Common Sense, and you'll get my podcast.
All right. Real quick, it looks like General Flynn might be totally exonerated. You know what?
I hope to God he is.
It looks that way. You know, when I think back on the Ukraine fiasco, which I think was a fraud, when I look back on, let's see, Russia, and Mueller, those things seem so trivial now. And I wonder if our government's obsession and the media's obsession with those idiotic topics hurt us in terms of getting ready to respond to something like this.
I think they did. They divided us more. You know, we're not as united as we were, let's say, after September 11. So I think it did divide us more. It's making it a little harder for us to come together. But I am happy to see that the president and a lot of the governors are working together very well. It's really the congressional Democrats that can't seem to get over it. And I think on the executive level, it's working pretty well.
Last thing. During the campaign, you went to Donald Trump, your friend, for a long time, and you told him a couple of times, hey, you got to stop doing this. You got to try that. I mean, let's face it. He's a very unusual candidate. He's a very different type of president. Looks like he might be taking some Republicans' advice by not doing these briefings. Have you been on the phone with him, telling him, hey?
Well, obviously, I'm not going to say what I talked to him privately about, but the president has a tremendous political instinct of his own, so he doesn't need much advice. We all get it, and sometimes my advice is good, and sometimes my advice probably is bad. But he is somebody that's willing to take advice. In fact, he'll call you and ask you if you don't call him. He'll say, "Do you think this is right? Do you think that's right?" He takes a lot of opinions into consideration. I think that's one of the fallacies about the way in which he makes decisions. That's
interesting. And yeah, let's face it. He listened to his own gut during that campaign and his head, and he was right just about every time. And the results are amazing. Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you for covering this so well. It really is a public service.
Oh, my pleasure, sir. And thanks so much. Rudy Giuliani, everybody. All right.